This is actually AMSYS laptop. It's not mine. I have a MacBook and it wouldn't work, so I'm going to pass the blame.
So we're kind of ready. It's a good job there isn't a third day of this conference. I think the technology isn't going to hold up that much longer. Everything's falling apart. So the wireless is back, but if you can connect one at a time, that would be ideal.
So you, then you, then
yeah.
you. Now, sir,
So last session of the day, we've got a fantastic panel. Dana from MacBrain, Joel, Andrina, Ben, and Rich. Over to you guys.
Great. Well, congratulations on making it to the last session. It's a little round of applause for that. A little bit about me. My name's Dana Campbell. I work for a company called Slack. How many of you use Slack? Oh my God. Wow. That's fantastic. For those of you who don't, we have a communications app for teams, and we're on a mission to make your working lives simpler, more pleasant, and more productive. Aside from my day job, I also help admin the MacAdmin's instance on Slack, as well as help run MacBrain, which is a Mac and iOS community, mainly based in the Bay Area, but we are expanding. All right, so what we're here to talk about. We had a ton of great technical talks. This is not one of them. We're actually going to be diving into some technical skills, soft skills, and kind of more of the career development side of things. So this is a quote from a Harvard study. 85% of one's success at the workplace is attributed to soft skills and only 15% to technical skills, which is kind of funny since we're kind of all in IT and we rely on our tech skills. But this is a fantastic panel. I'm going to do something different to bring some humor to the last session and have each panelist introduce each other. So let's see how this goes. You're up first, Joel.
So Andrina has to introduce me because I'm up first.
First, you need a mic.
There you go. Now you get to introduce me.
All right. She was hoping not to be first, but so I get to introduce Andrina. 12, 15 years that we've known each other.
Stop aging me.
No, well, you were 4. No, that doesn't go any better. And with
This
that,
is a
we're
bad
off.
idea.
Andrina and I have been working together through various forms of one thing or another for a long time, and including apparently 2004 WWDC was the first time we met in person.
In person.
But not met. We had been working together. You had been writing some stuff from the site and some things like that. Since then, Andrina has gone from independent consultant to film studios to telecommunications and media, and now to Jamf. Did I do okay?
Yeah.
All right. Unfortunately, she now lives in Minneapolis. And Andrina Kelly, everyone.
All right. This is Joel Rennich, who has been the man of mystery for about the last 7 or 8 years as he quietly seconded himself away from the community in the Great Hall of Apple. And he has recently arisen from the 12 years within the walls of Apple and is now based in Austin, Texas. Apparently Austin.
I've been there 4 months.
Apparently Austin is weird, so take that into consideration. And Joel, his biggest claim to fame, I would have to say, is that he is one of the original founders of AFP548.com, which, in fact, yes, that deserves a round of applause. So that, of course, has been around for a very long time. And as he mentioned, the way that I first encountered Joel was reading everything that he had written so that I could actually do my job, and then being able to help contribute back into the site as well.
Thank you. It was very polite.
Afternoon. I've got quite an easy job here. This is Rich Trouton, a guy who needs no introduction.
Thank you, Ben. And I'd like to introduce Ben Toms, the man, the myth, the legend, the fragile. Ben has been, if nothing else, a fantastic, wonderful member of the MacADUK community. He's gone, I think, above and beyond in writing tools that benefit a ton of us. And he's always helping. He's never, seemingly run out of patience. And I'm happy to have him as a friend and colleague.
Thank you.
Well, that turned out to be a great idea. I'm glad I thought of it. All right, so if the Wi-Fi is back up, I'll let you guys be the judge of that. You can ask questions in a Slack channel. It's beyond-MacADUK, or you can use Twitter if you still like to tweet. But I also have a form that is still live if you want to answer anonymously.
mistyped her password
I now
4 times.
cannot get into my laptop.
Do you need to call someone?
#secure. All right, let's jump right in. This is one of the questions that was actually submitted to the form anonymously. What areas of focus for training and self-education would the panel recommend for techs wanting to become into or wanting to move into the Mac admin world?
Rich has the mic.
Oh, dang it. I'm it. One thing I would really look into is if you're new to the community and you are trying to figure out, how do I get started? How do I learn? One of the best ways I can honestly think of is to start engaging with the community through something like Slack. There's also the MacAdmin and MacAdmins hashtag on Twitter, because those conversations, you learn a lot, even if you're just watching it go by, because folks are out there solving problems. And sometimes it's just, I have this problem. Someone else is like, oh yeah, I've solved this problem, and here's the blog post that I solved it with. Or even just, I have this gist, I have this script, I have this something. And so you can, start to learn at that point, not just the technical skills, but also, generally how the community flows, how it works, and generally how helpful it is. So that would be, just to start out, that would be 2 really good resources I can think of, is Twitter and Slack. To get started. And also, from there, start to build a list of what blogs to read. Because, Apple with documentation, sometimes it's feast, sometimes it's famine. It tends to be more of a feast on the consumer side, unfortunately. So a lot of the things you find out about managing Macs in the enterprise, or even Macs on the small scale, you can find out, your greatest friend is going to be Google by being, OS 10, this problem I'm having. So research. That would be the best way I can think of. Research and also engagement with the community.
I'd say probably one thing to add to that is when you do find someone's blog or gist or something that gives you a solution, don't just chuck it in and think it's done and use that. Maybe start pulling those things apart. The only way I've learned how to script stuff is to have a problem to solve and then try and approach it with a language and figure it out. But great examples of from other people can really help you. And yeah, we do a lot of stuff now with depth, VPP, with profiles, but it's still Unix under the hood. We still wouldn't need to do scripts at times. So, and there is like Code Academy and things like that. But really, I think you need to just grab the examples and start to understand them and build that understanding. So that then hopefully then down the line you can contribute back as well.
I have a thing to add to that as well. Besides just the written word, I find it's very useful to learn by watching. A lot of conferences now, including Mac Sysadmin in Sweden, JNUC, and this conference, in fact, as well, are all recorded. Going off and finding the videos of previous conference sessions and just spending a day watching a conference, another great way to learn.
Oh.
Did you run out?
Well, you've done so well. Yeah, good job. Thank you. Next question.
So along those lines, education versus experience, which is more important?
Is that the question?
Yeah, what's more important, experience or kind of the approach? Is 10 years of experience better than a fresh approach?
I'm a classically trained journalism major. You were music theory?
No, performance.
Performance, French horn, right? Yeah, okay.
Performance and computer music technology.
Computer musicology?
Technology.
Technology, oh.
The accent.
And Rich?
History, but at least I monitored computer science.
Yeah, I know the team I had at Apple, I think out of 11 people, we had one person that had an actual IT-related degree. And I did actually have a computer musicologist. Chris Jinks was something like that. But the education part is hard. I don't know that you could get an education in a academic sense. I mean, obviously there's classes, there's training, there's certification, and from that education part, that's good. You can do that kind of stuff. But I don't know that a degree would have really helped me. Yeah.
The actual physical having a degree, being able to dedicate yourself to being able to understand what a continuing education is and really just sort of getting through that. I'm not entirely convinced that the actual content of the degree makes much difference. Certainly it's another one of those, how do you socialize, how do you build relationships, how do you continue? And there's still people that I actually went to school with for music who are ironically even in the same line of work that I am in now. There's a phenomenally high number of musicians in the Mac IT industry. But yeah, I certainly would not go back and not take a degree, even though I do not use it in my day-to-day employment now. Anyone else?
I mean, for me, I did my GCSEs, then I went to 2 music colleges, started working in music studios, got ripped off, got offered a job in a call centre, and 14 years later I'm here. I was a security guard for a synagogue as well for a while, and that was hired out at weekends for the local Indian community. So that was an interesting gig. But, I mean, I think for me, because the education bit doesn't stop when you get that degree and stuff. I think the main thing is when you've got your experience, but don't just get stale. Don't think that because you've done something for 14 years, 10 years, whatever, that you can keep doing it. You need to keep re-educating yourself with the new techniques and the new things that are coming in. And obviously, we're all working in a really fast-moving space at the moment. So, every year there's a new iOS, a new iOS 10 version, and you've got new things like DEP and all of that coming in. Just because we do imaging doesn't mean that those other things don't, are maybe not an option. In the same way as well, don't completely discount imaging because the other things are around. But you really just kind of need to educate yourself over the time, and the experience, I say, just don't stop and think that you know it all when you don't need to know anymore.
Yeah, I'd say that's about right.
Great. Next question, how do you deal with boredom / less interesting everyday crap between big projects?
Okay, so I've been doing IT now for about 14 years, and I still do first line stuff, so I could have got up and helped with the projector probably, because I still get called to do that, all the way through to doing automation with APIs and stuff like that. The thing is, I think you just have to deal with it to a point, but maybe have a look at the root cause of why those issues have occurred. Sometimes you can't get away with it. If someone doesn't understand how to plug cable into a laptop to get on the projector, there's always going to be that kind of learning gap for them maybe. So maybe try and educate them in a better way and hope that it doesn't turn into 5 calls from the same person. And maybe there's other things. If you've got that boring day-to-day crap, is there a way in which you could script that and automate that and take it away from you? And then actually you turn it into a challenge. And if you're doing this in between projects as well, you find you've increased your skill set, you've automated something else, you have more time to think, concept, learn. And if it's really, as well, another thing that can really help as well, hang out on Slack and talk to others, and you might end up with interesting conversations that take you to places, and you're going to be learning from that as well. Obviously, don't neglect your job while you're on there. Don't slack off while on Slack. But yeah, it's just got, for me, I like to see what these boring crap is and try and automate it or engage with the users and educate them or something along those lines. Almost turn that into a project itself. Sorry.
And also to expand on what Ben said, with automating the day-to-day stuff, sometimes it's just a good opportunity you've got time, assuming you've got time, to document it. So, like, for example, like Ben said, that you have people that are consistently unable to plug something into something else. Well, maybe that's a documentation opportunity where you can just slap up a giant poster on the side of the room that shows in very large detail, here's where you plug this in. And sometimes, there just is things that are dull. And sometimes that's just part of the job. And when that happens, I sometimes take a look at an opportunity to start solving other problems. Work on my side projects, do some writing, just other things. It doesn't necessarily just have to be this dull thing that you're looking at. You can do other things, assuming that you're, sitting and waiting on something. Well, turn that to good use. Work on that side project, do some writing, pull up another work project and start working on that.
Great. One of my favorite questions, what non-technical skill has added the most value to your career?
We've actually had this conversation a couple of times this week. And it's funny because my son, who's 9, goes to a school in Austin and actually has a daily class on emotional intelligence. And if you don't know what that is, that's the understanding of what somebody else is feeling as you're talking or discussing with them. And especially in an IT setting, I think that's something that's too often forgotten, either when working with users, when working with your management, when working with the line of business that you have to report to. It's that understanding that even though you may be factually correct, there's more to the conversation than just that. And so for me, that is by far, and that's probably where my journalism degree comes in, because we had to talk to all kinds of crazy people and write stories about them. That understanding and being able to work with that other person has been huge in helping me advance and helping me work with just who I had to work with.
Mine's kind of similar to Joel's, though mine is more office politics focused. Bureaucracy foo. Learning how to navigate the office politics to get what you want, which helps, it helps you figure out how do I navigate, the various things that are going on to get what you want, but at the same time benefit the business as well. My colleague and friend Tom Bridge actually has a great saying, fight for the users. So usually when I'm trying to apply my bureaucracy foo, it's to benefit the users in some way. And, I'm not going to say it also doesn't benefit me, but, I do try to at least get that dual benefit going.
Great. Well, let's open it up to the audience. Any questions for the panel? Don't be shy. Up in the corner.
All left in the far corner.
Sorry.
So Nick,
The rest of the light. It's up.
It's far away.
Hey. Hi, Rich.
Oh.
How are you?
Oh, hello. I just saw who that was.
Yeah, it's me. So you were talking about navigating office politics and bureaucracy. How would you recommend someone goes about learning how to do that if they've just been historically terrible at it?
Patience. First of all, start cultivating your patience, because you're going to be in situations where you're being told something that you consider completely nonsensical, where it's just, you're going to do X. Okay. What time frame do I need to have X done by? I have these other competing priorities, which could you please lay out where, before, or after they could, fall before I need to do X? Figure out ways to structure the discussion so it doesn't look like you're not helpful, but at the same time, trying to protect yourself and your resources, and also sometimes, the rest of the company from X. But the first thing you have to do there is just, instead of just going, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard, is cultivate patience think about it, and figure out a strategy to basically everybody gets what they want, except perhaps the guy who wants X.
One of my favorite questions when people come and ask me for something, which I kind of look at them and go, what? Is what is your end goal? What is the result that you're trying to achieve from this thing that you're asking me that I really don't understand right now? Usually once you get to the root of what it is that's causing them stress, you'll be able to come to a solution that actually will probably make them and you happier in the long run.
That too.
Rich approved.
Great. We have a question from Slack, and I'm going to assume this is directed towards Rich. How do you keep up with Slack/Twitter and still get work done?
That's definitely to Rich because I don't.
As best I can. There are times where I just so at my office, I've got a dual display set up, and I've got Slack basically full screen on one of them, and I just let it kind of flow by like a river. Same thing kind of for Twitter. If I need to work, I stop looking at Slack, I stop looking at Twitter. There are times where I'm just like, I can't be distracted. I quit them both. And, that's just generally how it works. I do my best. I try to keep up. I try to help people as much as I can, but I always remember that, my job is paying me to do the job. So sometimes that means that I got to sign out, I got to quit out. And when I can, I help the folks out on Twitter and on Slack.
Yeah, I think just knowing when to step away for a moment is really, really important. I get all the Jamf Nation emails sent to me for every post that's put up there, Mac Enterprise, a few Slack channels and Twitter. I've seemed to have somehow been able to scan stuff and then reply when I want, and I suppose I've got used to kind of scanning stuff and just quickly pulling apart and then trying to jump in. I'm also trying to be mindful of not trying to answer every question all the time, because like Rich was saying, you've got your own jobs, your own priorities, you've got your family and stuff to do as well. I actually enjoy it, and I'm trying not to make it a job. I think you've already got a job, so I think try and enjoy it. And maybe that's more the way as well that people, when you're having these interactions with people online, I think if you were arguing with somebody every time that you were doing this, you would find it very tiring. So be mindful of people. And also, if someone does post something and you think that you have the answer, but you're in the middle of something else, don't worry, someone else will answer it. Or if not, they might ask the question tomorrow. So don't feel too pressured into doing it.
Great. Another one, with automation and tools getting better and better, where do you see the work of a Mac sysadmin heading in the next 3 to 5 years?
We thought automation and tools were getting better 10 years ago. Luckily Apple's there to make it harder. So you've always got that to figure out. As ports will be removed, hardware will change. I don't see automation ever being an end goal. You try to achieve that, but I don't think we're ever going to be in a perfect world. The problems are different than we had 10, 15 years ago. We've talked a lot about the last 2 weeks, last 2 days, sorry. Do you bind to AD or not? I think the thinking on that is 100% different than what we had a few years ago. Are users heavily managed or very lightly managed? I think that's 100% different than they were a few years ago. But there's still problems out there, and I guarantee you there's going to be problems in 2 or 3 years. They'll be different, but that's good. They'll be engaging, but there'll be problems, and there'll be reasons for people like us to be here.
Yeah, I think I was alluding to this a little bit this morning as well, because the same conversation came up, is that really the role of the Mac administrator is not going away, it's just evolving. There's always going to be infrastructure, there's always going to be something. The computers and the devices are not going away, and as much as they are getting easier, there is certainly more complication coming along with it as well.
So for me, every role I've taken, I've only ever had like 7 of the 10 skills needed, and I've tried to skill up in the roles and learn more, and then progress and move on and move on and move on. Potentially in 10 years, the Mac platform could actually be a bit more like the iOS platform. We look at SIP, it could lock down a lot more things. Maybe stuff would only be able to be delivered via the Mac App Store. Maybe imaging completely dies and it's only via DEP. Someone's lost something up there. So, I mean,
Found it.
yeah. I mean, with that kind of thing in mind, it might be worth trying to look a little bit further afield with some of what you do. If you're doing stuff with a REST API within the JSS, you might look at other systems that also have APIs. So I've been doing a lot of API stuff recently with Box and with AirWatch, and moving stuff to Python as well and learning that. Now, and in my day job at Pentland, I look after the Macs, I look after our digital signage system, I look after our archiving solution, I look after our font management solution, I look after our Box instance, I look after our AirWatch system for our mobile devices. I'm also one of the admins of the AD Certificate Authority for the network policy server for our 802.1x network. And there's other stuff that I'm not sure I forget about. But it's quite nice being... When you get something thrown at you because you're the Mac guy and nobody else really wants to help you, take that and go and learn more from that and try and start to kind of widen your focus. And certainly skills with APIs. The API stuff, I mean, Pupine went on there earlier about the open source stuff with the APIs to connect between that. And you'll hear the buzzword, the Internet of Things. Well, that's just different platforms communicating via APIs. So it might be that going down that route would be beneficial to you. You can do the automation bit. It can help you in your day job now, but potentially down the line, that might become more valuable and more of a thing. And also, there's the DevOps kind of role that's just starting to come out and become more of a thing where, and if you look at it from an infrastructure point of view, from like an administration point of view, you're going to be developing solutions to better help your business operate. So you might find that, for me, I'm seeing maybe that it'll segue into that. But it's just as long as we just don't stop and we just keep going with it, and I think we'll be okay.
Great. Another one from Slack. How can IT professionals / teams promote themselves and their work better and or more efficiently within the organization? This is for a group of people who've not traditionally been known for their communication skills.
So in my shop, we recently moved our help desk, and we actually got a very nice new room out of the deal, where we got to set it up the way we wanted for the most part. And what we did to make sure everybody knew about it is we threw an open house where people came down. We actually had like an iPad Pro to show off how that worked. And instead of showing off things like how Office 365 works, we showed off how fighter game simulators worked. Exciting things. We gave a demo of El Capitan, which we were about to roll out in the next couple days, for folks to do a self-service install through our Casper self-service. Showed how to do that. Showed cool little things that were in El Capitan that maybe weren't there in previous versions of OS X. We had one of our folks give a demonstration of mechanical keyboards, and he showed off how fun it can be to have your keyboard sound like an enormous drum, things like that. We had a ton of people show up. We had raffles, we had cookies, we had, a catering thing show up. And people came down and they loved it. We heard about this for like 3 weeks afterward, how it was awesome. And it was just the kind of thing where it's like you publicize, you decide you're going to do something like that. You have something cool for when the folks show up. And it doesn't necessarily have to be work related. Like I said, we did fighter games to show off the iPad Pro. But in addition to the fact we were showing that off, we were also showing off like the capabilities of this iPad Pro. Look how smooth this is. Look how, look how good the picture is. Look how the fact that it's not stuttering at all. That kind of thing. So for us, that was it took like half a day for us, where the help desk pretty much was not running other tickets. But in terms of public relations and in terms of interacting with our other departments, it was humongously helpful, because then people got to come down, see our new space, learn where it was, see us, just kind of hanging out as cool people and having fun.
So I've seen a few ideas for this. A lot of places are implementing the like the Genius Bar at work, and so that's certainly one way that you could have your help desk people, especially sitting in a common area where people pass by and can do like the just 5 minutes question. How does this work? That's one way of approaching things. The other thing I've seen is really sort of getting the voice of the user and find out what's important to them. I did this at a previous employer. When you hear the voice of the user and understand what they need to know more about, and then you can run like a quick little lunch and learn or something like that for them that really engages with the end user. But yeah, putting yourself into their position and engaging with them and being one of them rather than against them, I think would engender yourself quite nicely there.
What's the best way to survive and thrive in a Windows-centric environment that isn't overly pro-Mac?
Fight. Well, no. It's kind of the thing I alluded to earlier, where you get stuff thrown at you and get told just to make it work potentially from these guys. There's normally going to be a couple of ears that you can bend, a couple of people that might be a bit more helpful than others. But if you can fight and get yourself the access to these things, and if you can actually learn them yourself, that's the kind of approach I've taken with it. There has been a number of people that have been better at kind of working with me on this, and that's been good. But really, what ends up happening is over time, when they start seeing you deliver these things and these things happen, they'll start to kind of come onto your side. They'll start to realise that Macs aren't the etch-a-sketches, as places have called them before, or the non-enterprise devices that they've seen. And there is a massive amount of really basic misinformation out there from people who just don't really care about the space. We had a wireless vendor come in to help us do some of our 802.1x stuff, and the first thing this person said, and we paid them, it was like £1,000 for a day or something, and they said, well, the problem you're going to have with 802.1x is you can't bind Macs to the domain. It's like, what, really? That was the first thing the guy said, and that was 2 years ago, only 2 years ago. So it's kind of educating them as well to a point, and that two-way street. And if over time, I think time and that patience that we said before with the politics, and I think you start winning them over. For me at Pentland, we went from, they thought they had 65 Macs, we've got 300 now, with all the other things I manage, about 1,500 mobile devices soon as well, with me and a guy called Mike on our team. We've got 33 other people that look after the rest of the infrastructure, but we've actually started to get them to start taking on some of the Mac calls as well. We've made it clear and simple documentation, the imaging process, they netboot, they image, and we've started kind of have that two-way thing with them, and I'm getting engaged now on projects that are completely Windows-centric, because I've helped do other things with them, and then they've helped me with other things, and it becomes that give and take, and just time, and you'll win them over. Unfortunately, people can be quite obstinate, and that's people. Just patience.
The other thing that I've seen in previous environments is just simply be awesome. If you are doing a stellar job for your users and you are empowering your users and your users are exclaiming about how awesome you are, the Windows users start to hear this and want the same tools that the Mac users are encountering. And as soon as the Windows users start asking for the same tools and saying, well, why can't I have that on my Windows PC? Suddenly the Windows administrators start sitting up and taking notice of this. So be awesome.
Earlier today, Sam has spoken about what he wished he knew 5 years ago. If you could share anything with your previous self, what would it be?
Be awesome.
Don't get a motorbike. Should do your left leg in. Be careful when you go to New York. Should do your right leg in. Watch out for stairs in Spain. Should do your left leg in again.
And work related?
Well, the New York trip was work related. So yeah. I think certainly in the last 5 years, personally, I've learned a lot more about the politics, the stuff we were talking about earlier, and I mean, moving from where I did to Pentland, and there's a lot of great guys there, but they've been there for a while. Like, we've got a lot of the team have been at Pentland for like 10 plus years, and they've all got their own dynamic and their own relationships. So you kind of come into that, and that can be a bit odd to get used to because it's so cemented. And kind of coming in there and trying not to be the bull in the china shop, and trying to learn how that works as well, and it not be a problem. You know, you don't feel like you're having to work at these relationships now. So I think it was something that I wasn't very good at before, and I've got much better at it, which is, it's good to have those colleagues that kind of help you with that as well. But yeah, it was really it was that softer skills, that politics side, and finding that sometimes when someone is doing something that you might see as a bit hostile to your Mac environment, just going for a coffee with them, that kind of thing, and just having a chat, and that has been massively helpful to me recently. And like I said, I wasn't too good at doing it before.
I don't know if this is something I would have told myself 5 years ago, but it's something I learned about that time, which is change is good. If you're not running at it, you're running away from it. And if you want to manage the change and you want to make the change for yourself better, run at it. And if you find yourself 2 or 3 years and you're kind of doing the same thing you were doing before, and maybe you're mildly happy, but you're good, but you're bored, change is good.
I'd echo that too. I love change. I think the other thing that I would strongly encourage, and I do encourage in the people that I see coming up in our organization, is it's a marathon, not a 5K. You aren't expected to know everything within half a day. It's going to take you some time to learn things, and don't be ashamed or afraid of that, and keep on persisting at it.
The 5-year time frame is kind of interesting because I just finished up my 5th anniversary in this past September at my current gig. So 5 years ago, I was just starting kind of at that place, which had a very different attitude towards, say, me writing a blog than my previous gig had had. So I think the thing I would tell myself is that you're not going to see the next 5 years coming. It's going to be awesome in ways that you honestly do not understand right now. And it's been a great ride.
Actually, similar to Rich, 5 years in March is how long I would have been at Pentland. 5 years in March 28th. And I basically took the step of moving to an environment that had no Mac management, and then took it on board and built something from scratch. And I suppose it was having a bit more faith in myself, and it was quite a big leap for me, where I'd always worked in other people's environments, or I'd contracted short term and stuff like that. So having a bit more belief, but also knowing that belief but not arrogance. I think because I stepped into it, I was quite afraid of what was happening. And I gave it a go, and it worked out really well. I'm now actually moving on as well now. So 5 years been at Pentland, and as we said yesterday, I'm moving to DataJar, a new challenge, because whilst Pentland's been really good, I am getting a bit bored. So it's time for me to move on. But yeah, you say that kind of like self-belief but not arrogance kind of thing, kind of you can do it, and you'll break it, and you'll do it wrong, but then you'll fix it and do it right.
Any questions from the audience? We have some time left. Yeah.
Somebody throws it.
Nice.
Those microphones are
I just wanted to ask to explore a little more about the voice of the user. In my experience, it's hard to find out what the user wants because they don't know what's possible. That they spend half an hour clicky, clicky, clicky because they don't know that you could script something that they could do it in 5 seconds. How can you get them to realise what can be done and encourage them to ask for more?
I think make yourself available. to be asked the questions, and for them not to consistently have to do all that clicking to achieve the goal. So the first thing I did when I started at Pentland, I got a copy of ARD, and I walked the office and found all the Mac people, had a quick chat with them, got remote access to their machines, and kind of just started writing down some issues and just sat down with every person. And then that gave me a great list to start with things to fix. And then through that, we've also, almost every week, we're sitting down with different teams and different functions as well, just for an hour, just to say, hey, how's it going? What's the hot potato? What's the problem? But it's being visible and being available for that. I think people can't conceptualize or, look, I'm really struggling with now, but people can't maybe tell you what it is they're trying to do. But if they can show you, and if they can at least think they can ask, then you might then find these root cause problems. You might then be able to find the stuff that you can script and enrich their experience.
One thing I like to do whenever I go up and I'm working with someone on a call is that once I'm done, I say, while I'm here, is there anything else I can do for you? Because that's they might say, no, everything's great, everything's taken care of. But they might also tell you about this thing that has been bothering them for like months. They never called it into the help desk, but while you're here, would you mind taking a look at it? Or they'll tell you about how their office mate or how, everybody in like the 5 surrounding desks have been having problems printing to this one printer with legal size, and it just leaves this enormous black streak down the side. Just a simple question. While I'm here, is there anything else I can do? And you learn so much that way. And you also get that reputation as being the person who asked that question, which also, frankly, just makes you look good.
Yeah, I actually took the same approach as Ben did. I used to interview key users. And you start to learn who are your power users, and you start to learn, who are the people that have struggles. And once you start conducting these interviews and really start asking, I don't ask them, where does it hurt? I start asking them, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? And just really getting the basis of where they're trying to go, as opposed to actually telling, don't tell me what your problem is, tell me what your end result is expected to be.
Everybody else talked. We are implementing a user advisory board to try and get exactly what you're talking about in a little bit more of a formal way, where once a quarter we sit down with 4 or 5 of the users and kind of go through, what are you doing, meet some of the people that might be helping you, interact in that way, and you learn a lot from that. We hope to kind of keep that going in a more social context throughout the year through whatever social media they're using. But yeah, that feedback loop is important. I will say though, big grain of salt, you don't want to open it up to everything, because you don't want to turn it into a yelling, screaming session or anything else like that. You want to keep very focused, and you've got to get the right people. But having a good cross-section of the user base, you're going to find those things like Rich and Ben and Andrina are talking about that they want to do more of and they want to be better at.
Any other questions?
Do you have a question, Ben?
Just expecting more live questions. Do you want to shout it?
New to the Mac scene, I can see there's a lot of scripting required, which I'm not experienced with. What scripting language do you recommend? Bash, Python, et cetera, et cetera? And what are the best ways to learn other than going in the deep end?
This will keep us going for another 2 hours. I started on AppleScript as the gateway drug. Ben, I know, definitely a big fan of that. And then moved to Shell, and then dabbled in Objective-C because I thought that was real coding. But most of that was Googling and then pasting things until they compiled, which does work. It's not pretty, but it works. It's not quite a try statement like Sam was talking about. And now I'm actually quite excited, Sam mentioned this earlier, about Swift. I think Swift is approachable enough that as long as you only read the first 20 pages of the language guide that Apple has, It seems very logical. It's not as chatty as AppleScript is. It's a little more maybe documented officially than Shell is, at least from Apple. And then don't read the last half of the language guide. Just get to the first 20 pages, understand basic structure of programming, for loops, while loops, those kinds of things, how to declare variables. Then you're going to be off to the races. That's going to get you more than dangerous enough to do a lot of fun stuff. And then if you need to do something in Shell because you need to cover something beyond the last year, well, hey, you can do that too. Because that same kind of syntactical knowledge is what you need to kind of cover anything. Greg Nagel and I were talking about this last night. I think you looked at me a little weird, but Python always hurt my head. And Perl I'd look at, and I've seen self-aware Perl, which is a beautiful thing, but it's very dangerous. So Perl always confused me, but I don't know, I like Swift. I've been playing around with it. I like the sandbox so you can get immediate feedback, even though enough things are broken in the sandbox to be really irritating if you try to go too far into it, but it'll get better. So I would say AppleScript is a decent place to start, although I have a little hesitation about that now. I like Swift, and I think if you haven't done anything before, it's probably not a bad place to start.
AppleScript always hurt my head. I started venturing into Bash was my first place of scripting. I was very lucky to work in an environment where I was the Mac admin surrounded by 14 Linux administrators. So I had a pretty good learning curve there. But the way that I actually learned, it was by taking something that almost did what I wanted it to do, and then figuring out what was that I needed to change to make it do what I wanted to do. And then you can start stringing all of these things together. I found Bash was highly approachable because, I mean, it's write a one-liner in the terminal. Does that do what I want it to do? Okay, put that into my script. Then what is the next one-liner? String these two things together and see what actually works out. And that was how I first started scripting. Amusingly, I ventured into Python for about 2 months when I got given a challenge, sort of saying, hey, can you make this function work in Python? When you actually have something that you need to solve, that's the other thing which is really going to help you learn something. Because you can't just sit down and say, okay, today I am going to teach myself this scripting language, but not have something to actually get out of it. And so this was, I mean, way back, I think 14, 15 years ago, that, can you write something that is essentially a software update server and do it in Python? And so thanks for that, Joel. Having that challenge put ahead of you is something that you can actually try and accomplish and sort of visualize how do you want to get from here to there and start building that up.
I actually think Bash is probably the better kind of gateway language in a way. The reason for that is it doesn't do a lot for you. It's quite unforgiving, and you kind of have to do everything line by line by line. If you start moving to things like AppleScript and Python, there'll be this various different kind of calls and stuff that you can do within those languages that would a bit like shortcuts almost, whereas in Bash you'd have to kind of completely write it out. So you can easily round up and round down numbers in AppleScript, and you can tell if you can get a length of the amount of items in an array within Python really easy. You can also, Python's great for kind of capitalization and title case and lowercase and all that. Try and do that with Bash. You've got to kind of go through, and it's a lot more manual. And I think in some ways it's kind of like bang your head against the wall with it and kind of learn how to do it manually, because then you'll know when you move to AppleScript and when you move to Python, you'll then appreciate that stuff more, and your brain will probably be already making those jumps to where these other things are, without you just kind of doing imports willy-nilly and guessing where it ends up. Just having to do it manually, which whilst it's going to be uncomfortable, is probably, for me, I think that's going to teach you a bit more.
Yeah, I definitely think I think Bash is a good place to start. To echo Ben, it is also you pretty much have to tell it everything you want it to do. Like Python has some nice functions, like you can just import something and you just pull in all this functionality that you can then use in your Python application or Python script. Whereas in Bash, you'd have to write that out for yourself. And also, sometimes the best way to learn how to do something is identify a problem. And to give you an example, in 2011, Apple introduced FileVault 2, and I was all on fire for FileVault 2. Let's figure this out. Let's make this work. FileVault 2 on 10.7 had very limited functionality on the command line. You could do some of it with disk util core storage. There were some other things that you could figure out from the command line, but by and large, it was all through like system preferences and seeing things, how they appeared at the pre-boot login screen, things like that. So I decided I wanted to be able to figure out a way to see if a box was encrypted or not encrypted, or if it was encrypting or decrypting and how far along it was. And the first thing I did was I went looking to see if anybody had written anything like that. And the answer was no. I saw lots of people who were like, how do I do this? But I hadn't seen anyone who actually did it. So I was like, well, apparently I got to write this myself. It was my first really long shell script. And you could see it in my GitHub commit history, how many revisions it's gone through since then. But the first revision was pretty bad. It did the job. It absolutely did the job. It was inefficient. It had some things that are, looking back on it, just make me cringe now. But I did it. I wrote it. It did the job. And lots of people started using it, which just amazed me. And it kind of went from there. I went from I'm not a great script writer to I'm a better script writer. I don't think I've ever qualified to be a good script writer. That's kind of in the eye of the beholder. But find a problem, solve it. Find a problem, solve it. And sometimes that means find a problem, go to Stack Exchange, see if someone else has tried to solve this problem. Oh, look, someone wrote code that almost works, but it almost works. Let me see if I can make it work. And that's just gradually how I've learned how to do stuff when I've been scripting. So nobody's born knowing this stuff. All of us at some point, we're just like, I have no idea what to do. Frankly, I still run into that. And the other solid piece of advice I would say when learning scripting is don't run the script you're writing on your own machine. Virtual machines will save you. And I think that's it.
So last question.
Is everybody okay?
I would add.
Go ahead,
I would add
Elliot.
one more thing. Sorry.
You'll be
to
the last
the
question.
script idea is not to underestimate the value of pseudocode, of actually writing something down on paper. Like if you get this thing, then do this thing, and for this many loops, do this thing. It doesn't even matter what language you end up writing it in. If you start to think of programming in those logical constructs, it makes it a lot easier to adapt to any language you want. And I know this as somebody who didn't write Bash, who learned to write Bash, and didn't write Python, learned to write Python by just writing pseudocode first, and then going to somebody who knows better than I do.
Do we have time for one more?
Yeah, got one more.
One more quick one from Slack. You have 10 seconds to answer. If you could be any Apple product, what would it be and why? 10 seconds.
MacBook. I love it.
Mac Pro, because it's a bit like Darth Vader trash canish.
Apple Network Server 500. That sucker was awesome. It was awesome.
Andrina, number one.
I'd be whatever comes after the one more thing.
Ooh. Sometimes those aren't.
All right, I think that's it. Thanks to AMSYS for a wonderful conference and to our panelists.
One more thing. So, it's Rich's birthday today. We can all wish him a happy birthday. Do you want to sing or should we just clap?
It was Ben's birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rich. Happy birthday to you.
another birthday quite like this. And I may never have another one quite like it, and I'm very glad to have had this one.
Well, there's always MacADUK 2017, isn't there? Yeah, nothing much for me to say. Just thanks everyone for coming along. It's been a brilliant conference. Forgive the Wi-Fi issues. Sweep that under the carpet. When it came to on Monday, my boss was saying, so what about the next conference? And I was like, the what? Come on. But after seeing, the conversations that have been going on and the feedback, it's been absolutely brilliant. I mean, there's not going to be any question about another conference next year. It's definitely going to be happening. There's a link on the website saying if you register now, there's a 30% discount. That was going to be ending today, but obviously then no Wi-Fi. That was slightly harsh on everyone. So we'll extend it till 6 p.m. tomorrow. That doesn't mean you're buying a ticket. It just means if you register, you qualify for a 30% discount, early bird. And apart from that, I think a few of us are probably going to pop to the pub for an unofficial final drink. And that's it. Thank you very much.